was living one big lie. She fucking hates me. Trust, she fucking hates me. Love, 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 love. I tried too hard and she told my feelings.
In the nick of time, she rescues Matt and warns him repeatedly not to look at her face. She doesn't have much faith in the glasses thing, but as it turns out, Matt is too stupid to notice anyway. As Ginny, she talks with Matt about his rescue, hoping to get complimented indirectly. Instead, he calls her nuts. Well, again, how can you tell? She had a perfectly reasonable excuse for not wanting him to look her in the face. Even from his perspective, he should realize that it makes sense for a superhero to have some mysteries. Ginny does not take it well, and she expresses her frustration in such a way that we're supposed to believe she's nuts. Even though it makes sense given that we know she's G-Girl herself. Whatever. She has to blow her cover when she uses her super speed to save a little girl crossing the street, suddenly appearing on the other side of the road from Matt. And then she's hit by a car herself and is completely uninjured. Wait. Oh my god. First bed breaking, and now she's revealed by a car hitting her? It's Twilight. Think about it. A docile human character gets into a relationship with a sexy, dominant, supernatural character with super strength, super hearing, and super speed, who confuses the human by rushing out because of supernatural needs, who is revealed as something unusual by receiving no injury after being hit by a car, while trying to save a girl, who regards the human with intense, dominant fascination, and who breaks the bed during sex. This is a male fantasy version of Twilight, 2 years before the film came out, and somehow more sexist. At least Twilight has the strong, independent woman line. This is just scum.
Take control. You're a strong, independent woman.
Girls all really stick together, don't you?
Oh, and G-Girl's conversation with a little girl means that this film passes the Bechdel test. Remember that whole 11-minute video I made on how the Bechdel test is flawed? All I had to say was, my super ex-girlfriend passes. Matt is actually far less intelligent than Bella Swan, because he can't come up with any explanation for Jenny's lack of injury, and just rambles on about it being a miracle. Bella not only figures out that Edward is a vampire, her first guess is that he's a superhero. Matt has the advantage of knowing that superheroes actually exist, and he still needs Jenny to fill him in. It's not good when your protagonist is the more stupid version of Bella. And then there's a stupid transphobic joke where he thinks that she's coming out as trans. Ha 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 ha, 1 in 5 trans women are murdered. To be fair, Deadpool has the same problem.
Aren't you a little strong for a lady? I'm calling Wang.
She reveals herself as G-Girl and makes him swear never to tell anyone, essentially threatening grievous bodily harm if he ever does, but keeping it vague enough that it isn't totally apparent that it is in fact a threat. This, incidentally, is the first sign that he should have that she may be dangerous. Not being neurotic, not her being dominant, an actual implied threat.
I really am to die for.
She explains her origin story. She and Barry were a couple in high school. On the night they were supposed to have sex, a meteorite crashed nearby and distracted them. Seeing this orange, glowing space rock, Jenny went over to touch it, as you do. It then exploded and gave her superpowers. And super boobs. Yeah, we're going into Terminator 3 territory. The idea is that it made her attractive, but the way it focuses on things like breasts, teeth, and hair color is super fetishy, and less about her than the male gaze. It essentially turned her into a super sex object. With her super attractiveness, she became popular and blew Barry off. At this point, there is a noticeable divide between Jenny's narration and what we see in the flashback. She describes the situation as Barry deserting her, perhaps because he's envious of her powers. What we see is her ignoring him to date another guy, and him jealous because of her directly snubbing him.
You lie!
Interestingly, feminist horror movies Ginger Snaps and Jennifer's Body have similar narratives, with every woman protagonist being ditched by the objects of their affection as they become more popular following transformation into powerful beings. The difference there is that the supernatural objects of affection are treated with fundamental respect, with the protagonist worrying after them and an implication that they are innocent victims of their coerced transformation. Whereas in My Super Ex-Girlfriend, we are to view Jenny as just insane, and recognize Barry as the one who deserves all the respect as the maligned ex-boyfriend. Therefore, even though Jenny decided to make it her hobby to fight crime, and Barry decided to make it his hobby to make crime, our full sympathies are with Barry. A deleted scene makes this even worse, as it indicates that Barry is the one who wanted her to fight crime in the first place, giving him credit for everything good that she does, and blaming her for everything bad that she does. When Jenny finishes her story, Matt asks if she could use her power for sexual roleplay, so she does a more sexual version of the Superman taking Lois Lane flying scene, and then he complains about being emasculated by her taking the dominant role in the scene, which is literally just a gender flip of Superman and Lois Lane, so it's just blatantly sexist. Jenny wants to have sex with him in the air, while he's freaked out over the heights. I have to give the director some credit here for effectively triggering my vertigo. It starts out with him on edge, but basically okay with it, and at this point it's just kinky. However, she totally disregards his limits and drops while having sex, with him actively telling her to stop. Again, it's an act of male rape, completely disregarded by the narrative. She is portrayed as crazy, but in a way associated with her being sexually dominant, not as a rapist. Errol, they're straight people! The next day at work, Matt has a splinter in his finger.
Oh my God!
It's not related to the previous scene, nor does it have anything to do with his job. It is a completely contrived incentive for Hannah to suck it out in a gratuitous blowjob visual metaphor. This joins the super boobs as an example of sexual objectification that this movie has in common with Terminator 3. But oddly more graphic here than the example in the R-rated film. The fact that this got a PG-13 rating really emphasizes the misogyny and homophobia of the MPAA. We can't have two guys kissing without it being an R, but something as graphic and demeaning as this makes the cut for PG-13. Out of nowhere, Jenny shows up, jealous and suspicious. It's really played up that she's unhinged for being so jealous, even though we were just shown that she has good reason to doubt his loyalty. We know that he's really attracted to Hannah. We know that Hannah doesn't approve of his relationship with Jenny, and we just saw the blowjob metaphor. He is clearly straying. But no, she's a crazy girlfriend.
He loves me. He loves me now.
Matt tries to smooth things over with a double date, leading to a rehash of the first awkward date scene. Instead of Jenny sneaking out to do superhero work, she pointedly ignores an incoming missile to spite Matt. It plays on misogynistic stereotypes of catty women being trouble for men, and doesn't portray her with an ounce of empathy. She storms off and deflects the missile, and she comes back in time to see Matt and Hannah embracing. She confronts him on the ride home, and accurately reads him as interested in Hannah. She accurately says that he wants to date her, but can't because she has a boyfriend. We know all of this is accurate, because the movie has been broadcasting it since Hannah first came on screen. And yet, Jenny is portrayed as irrationally jealous for no good reason. Jenny shows her violent side soon after, but it's only that action that crosses the line. Her being jealous doesn't.
I've never been good with competition.
This shifts into the side of the movie where we laugh as a woman abuses a man. Uma Thurman overacts in such a way that we're to take it as absurd, with Matt scrambling for stability taken as an unlucky schlemazel comedy, similar to Vince Vaughn's character in Wedding Crashers. It's a horror movie scenario, but the filmmakers think that it's a wacky comedy. Matt goes to Vaughn for advice. He says that Jenny is actually jealous and clingy, and he wants to break up with her because he's actually in love with Hannah. So Jenny was right. Doesn't this validate all of her jealousy and clinginess? I mean, it doesn't justify the violence, but Matt doesn't complain about the violence. All he complains about is a sexist stereotype that makes perfect sense in context. There is also more homophobia in the treatment of Vaughn. Despite him being defined by his attraction to women, he acts in ways that Matt perceives as gay, which bothers him. There's a real fear in the air that Vaughn could have gay feelings for him. Contrast this with Deadpool, where the gay subtext between Wade and his nerdy friend is Wade flirting with him.
What can I do for you? I'd love a blowjob.
Matt takes Vaughn's bad advice and tries to gently break up with Jenny. It doesn't go very well. Jenny lashes out violently. She trashes his place, blows him across the room, and tries to kill his fish. He has a dream about telling Vaughn, and Jenny showing up to murder him in response. He wanders around in fear and jeopardizes his relationship with Hannah by reacting defensively when Jenny harasses him at work. All this extreme violence is supposed to be hilarious.
Fuck you.
Carla sees him knock Hannah to the ground and comes in to accuse him of sexual assault, hilariously of course, because workplace harassment totally isn't a real thing, and she's just an uptight feminist. Hannah completely defends him for no good reason, given that she doesn't have any reason to trust him. Carla takes him aside, and even though she seems to think he's a criminal, she tells him to get his head into gear because of an important meeting. And this leads to a racist joke where Matt makes a faux pas.
I hear you, homegirl. I got it.
What did you just call me?
That is a very racialized comment. It makes a joke out of racial tensions that goes absolutely nowhere. This clip is all there is. It establishes Matt as racist, and then drops the thread. We already disrespect Carla as an uptight feminist, and now we don't have any reason to respect her as a black woman. Along with the black criminal spraying bullets, it gives the film an ugly racist tone in addition to its rampant misogyny. Jenny hilariously steals Matt's car, oddly not the same one as on the poster, and drops it into low orbit. She also burns the word dick into his forehead. That's not a goofy prank. That's evil. She then ruins his important presentation by running around the room at supersonic speeds, blowing papers around, and leaving him nude. I don't even get this one. Clearly he's not the one to blame, but the business people react like he's some pervert who undressed himself in the middle of the meeting. Even if the visiting Chinese aren't aware of G-Girl, they should be able to figure out that there has been some kind of bizarre attack on the boardroom. But he gets fired anyway.
Just what I had in mind.
That's when Professor Bedlam comes back. He's been experimenting with exposing G-Girl hair to parts of the meteorite, and has determined that it absorbs the magical radiation and removes invulnerability from her hair. Now he wants to recruit Matt to help him depower her entirely. He tells Matt that Jenny has been harassing him the same way, and that they should make an alliance of men standing up to this woman. Matt is reluctant to team up with a supervillain, and Bedlam gives him his card.
Or you can email me at professorbedlam.com.
This was some kind of transmedia thing. There was a website set up. Unfortunately, it's down. I don't know what it is. Archive doesn't have it. Hannah calls Matt and asks for his emotional support. It turns out that Steve cheated on her with 2 or 3 other women, and now she's available and open to being his girlfriend and having sex with him on the spot. Of course! This would be the common sexist narrative where the nice guy, beta male protagonist is a friend to the hot girl who ignores him to date an alpha male who is really a jerk. And then she finds out about his jerkishness and dumps him for the protagonist, who she realizes is a nice guy, and thus capable of being an alpha male to date her.
Alpha.
With its extremely poor characterization, My Super Ex-Girlfriend distills the trope to its bare-bone misogyny. And then Jenny attacks them with a shark. High trailer scene. The DVD even has an extended cut of the Gorham thing. They really liked this scene.
Let's redecorate.
After Jenny's threats in the dream, Matt doesn't want to tell Hannah what's going on, so he just runs to Bedlam to join him in a scheme to depower her. Bedlam fills him in on the meteorite and tells him to lure Jenny close to it. So Matt goes to Jenny and begs her to take him back. His groveling works, and he lures her to his place for a dinner date. She shows interest in the gift box containing the meteorite, but he diverts her away because, that would work, and there are 20 minutes left to fill up. They eat dinner, and that allows time for Hannah to get there and have a wacky sitcom misunderstanding. They argue, Vaughn shows up for no reason. Jenny is revealed as G-Girl. They open the gift and depower her. Bedlam walks in for his evil monologue.
You got me monologuing!
He gloats that he intends to become a superpowered supervillain, so Matt and Vaughn attack him, while Hannah tries to keep Jenny from regaining her powers.
Read a book, sister. That passive-aggressive number went out long ago.
Jenny and Hannah both get powers, somehow just as powerful as Jenny the first time, even though they should logically be half as strong, and a very badly choreographed, hard-to-follow fight scene ensues. Yeah, spinning like a top, not really that interesting to watch. Matt interrupts and talks them down. getting Jenny to realize that what they had wasn't love, but apparently Jenny and Bedlam's mutual obsession means that they're soulmates. There's the seed of a good joke here with a superhero who was really a villain, and the morally gray villain being perfect for each other because of their Wile E. Coyote interplay, and a civilian helping them realize this, but it's just executed terribly and comes off as forgiving abuse. The scene ends in a weird place with the two of them having a standard romantic close, with civilians applauding and dancing around them completely unironically. Matt and Hannah continue their romance with her as a superhero, and have a rehash of the breaking the bed scene, where they actually go through the wall and into another apartment. Though it is contrasted with the Matt-Jenny sex scene by having Matt more into it, it's still effectively rape because she hurts him, he says to stop, and she doesn't. It goes back to the assumption that men always want sex and can't legitimately be raped, so there's not even a moment of clarification. Even the romance supposed to not be abusive still comes off as abusive. Jenny and Bedlam make friends with them. They are now perfectly fine with everything, and Jenny and Hannah fly together to rescue a jet, while Bedlam and Matt awkwardly hold their purses. So I guess she's not insane anymore? The whole notion of Jenny's supposed insanity draws on stereotypes of women with borderline personality disorder, as seen through the eyes of misogynistic men. The negative portrayal represents an intersection between the stigma against mental illness and just plain misogyny. The woman is valued only for her utility to the male protagonist, and her mental illness is seen as problematic for jeopardizing that utility. She isn't treated with the same respect awarded male superhero characters like Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, for whom mental illness in the forms of narcissism and spontaneous rage are defining attributes.
Textbook narcissism. Agreed?
I'm always angry.
Because she isn't framed as a real person in the same way. The overall disrespect of women in this film is magnified when it overlaps with the stigma of mental illness, turning her into a broken romantic plot device that essentially becomes the villain plot device when she should be a sweet, subordinate, sexy but not too sexy delivery system for Matt's romantic fulfillment. Oh, and Barry's a murderer. He's killed at least 2 people and has shown 0 remorse. He could probably be considered a psychopathic serial killer, but because he's a man, he's sympathetic and not Jenny's crazy stalking ex-boyfriend, even though he literally is.
You psycho!
The plot is continued in a series of animated credit sequences. While not necessarily canon, it takes the overall spirit of the live-action portion of the film and abstracts it into absurdist comedy skits. Deadpool would do something very similar to firmly assert that its protagonist is bisexual, and do some more overt male sexual imagery than what would be allowed in the live action. Unfortunately, my super ex-girlfriend just does more of the same unfunny humor and sexist crap. This includes a scene where Carla pinches Vaughn's butt. Wow. They couldn't even keep her characterization consistent. It reinforces the idea that workplace sexual harassment is not a legitimate concept. Carla's insistence that it does exist is portrayed as a personal flaw, stemming from her uptight, angry feminist personality. Now in the absurdist cartoon, she's able to relax and have fun, and this means sexually assaulting a male subordinate, because the writer and director thought that was unproblematic natural behavior.
You know what I like to do to gorgeous butts?
And because it's Vaughn, we're supposed to think it's okay because he's perpetually horny, and it's the same problem of delegitimizing men's potential victimhood. There's another jealousy gag when cartoon wackiness dumps a woman in Matt's lap, I guess in a spanking position, I don't know. And Hannah then thinks he's cheating for no good reason. Even though Hannah isn't supposed to be the irrationally jealous one, the insane girlfriend, she drags him off to, torture him, I guess. It's more of the same schlemazel-based humor done through reducing the girlfriend to a series of mechanical responses, like she's a game that he's losing. There's a joke with Jenny lifting the fridge so that Barry can sweep under it. It very overtly characterizes him as subordinate to her in a way that evokes a flip of traditional gender roles, as a means of humiliating him for the sake of humor. With her super strength and strong personality, Jenny has effectively emasculated Barry and forced him to act like a woman traditionally would with household chores. This is textbook anti-feminist imagery, ripped from anti-suffragist propaganda. Oddly enough, the cartoon sequence has this wonderful song playing through it. Rescue Me by Rachel Robinson. It's a delightful romantic song with lyrics likening the singer-suitor to a flying superhero.
Just fall out of the sky and rescue me.
A lot of people really like this song, enough that some people are even willing to sit through this movie just for this sequence. It's weird because even though it was written specifically for this movie, it has nothing to do with it. It implies a completely different tone than what the movie actually is. In fact, the whole soundtrack is like that. It's like the sound department thought that this was going to be a sweet rom-com, and no one bothered to tell them otherwise, leading to this surreal, sentimental music playing over raunchy humor and threats of violence. At the end of the cartoon is a quick live-action gag scene before the official credits. The film has a subplot with Vaughn trying to sleep with various women, especially a particular bartender. He tries to flirt with her and repeatedly hassles her to go out with him, but she firmly rejects him every time. In the middle of the fight scene, however, he runs into her, lies that he has superpowers, flirts with her effectively in the cartoon, and then finally gets to sleep with her in this scene. What a jerk! What a mean-spirited movie! This world depicted as a surreal dystopian hellscape of male entitlement and dominance fantasies, born of insecurity and the fear that women's strength would doom men to the totally awful position of extreme subordination that they believe is a woman's natural place. The idea that women can abuse men terrifies a certain kind of sexist man, not because he's afraid of women abusing him, but because it would mean that the heteronormative patriarchal status quo is an inadequate model for understanding human social relations. He clings to the flawed model so tightly that he is willing to walk all over men and women alike to push his agenda. I don't necessarily think that Don Payne was an MRA or posted on the Manosphere websites, but his mindset was cut from the same cloth, and My Super Ex-Girlfriend represents that same terrifying worldview. In spite of everything, I want to like this movie. There are some interesting elements. Deadpool proves that satirical superhero sex comedies can work. It just needed massive rewriting and attention from filmmakers who actually give a crap about characters and treating people with respect. In the end, the film is a blight upon the world with its misogyny and other hateful prejudices, but it's also an example of failed potential. I could imagine a more respectful version with a serious look at domestic violence while lambasting the superhero genre and bringing a spotlight to the inadequacies of gender roles. In its absence, all I can do is recommend Deadpool for the comedy and Japanese horror movie Audition for a serious, empathetic take on what happens when a disrespectful man tries to date an insecure and dangerous woman. My Super Ex-Girlfriend is a hateful fantasy we can all hope to see lose its power. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, check out my related videos, and follow me on Twitter. And if you want to be added to the waiting list for paid commissioned videos, please email me at goingrampant@gmail.com.